All right, everybody, we are back again for episode number 11 of the Coach's Compass. As always, hit the like, subscribe, and comment button down below. It helps us continue to grow this thing and go in the right direction. You got my boy, Coach Coop, my boy Jay here. We're reporting live from Europe, and we got a special guest with us again today. We got my boy, Caleb, former JUCO player at Georgia Military College, D1 linebacker for UNC Charlotte. My former roommate went into his own working straight out in college, started working with Pelican Snowballs, which is just making shaved ice snowballs. From there, I actually helped them open 200 plus locations. Took it from 10 locations to 200 plus locations. Then State was part of their franchise, a franchisee for 6 plus years. From there, we over to the other side as head of franchise development for ISI Elite Training, where he encouraged me. He really recruited me to come over there and work, you dickhead. But after that, after a little bit of time spent there, opened up his own franchise consulting company called King and Tribe Franchise Consulting. It is my boy, Caleb Clayton Moby. Welcome, my brother.
What's up, brother? It's so good to see you guys. Thank you for having me.
Man, of course, bro. So it's life after ball, right? So Jay
Life
and I
after ball.
are currently still playing. I've got a little bit of taste of what life is like in between playing football. Can't say that I love adulthood or love the bills and everything that pile up with it. I kind of enjoy still playing football where other people pay your bills and you kind of just do what you need to do. But there is a time that it has to come to the quits. So when you realized football was gonna be over or was over, why did you choose franchising?
It's one of those things where most athletes, especially if you're playing at a high level, you get to a point where you've been playing so long that's all you really know. I played football for 16 years, and it's a difficult thing when your whole life you've been the best at that one thing that you do, right? And all of a sudden it's gone, and there's no warning, there's no signs that come and say, hey, you're about to not be playing football anymore, by the way. And so it comes when you least expect it. I remember the day I had just came back from the Panthers camp. We had just gone through all of our combine stuff, and I was waiting for calls back. I did get a couple calls for Europe and Canada, stuff like that. I was really weighing, like, am I going to leave the country and do this, and for how long, and what's my end goal with that? Or do I hang up the cleats? Do I try to do the whole NASCAR pit crew thing? Do I keep being an athlete, or do I just say, hey, I'm going to go do a 180 and try to figure out how to make some money, without leveraging my athletic ability, which, is the scariest thing that I've ever done, to be honest with you. So I did what I knew. I started working in a shaved ice company while I was playing ball in college, just in the summers, because college athletes, you got to be there for summer school and summer workouts and stuff. And I got bored, to be honest. So I was the 250-pound inside linebacker slinging snowballs in the summertime, and it was crazy because everybody in the locker room, I won't say everybody, mostly all of my buddies, like, Coop, were giving me a hard time. They're like, man, you snowball. But they were also the ones that came up and were there every day, and I hired a lot of them too. So don't get it twisted, right?
Boy said, I got y'all job.
Not me, man. I wouldn't work security. What I mean? I just security and bartending downtown. I wasn't with the whole shave. That was too close to campus. I couldn't do that. And this is before NIL deals, right? This is before we could
Yeah,
legally get money to do
yeah,
things. So we had to work summer
right,
jobs.
yeah. So I don't know. For me, it was the point. I remember it was. I think it was sometime in May. I told myself. I said, "Hey, this is the date that I'm putting on the calendar. And if I don't hear back from," made a list of people that I was like, okay, if I hear back from these people, then I'll move forward. But if I don't, that's the moment that I'm hanging my cleats up, and it's gonna be done for me. Like, I had to make that hard stop for myself and set the goal of, like, if I can get here, then I'll keep it going. If I don't, then I'm done. Like, I got to figure something else out. I remember that very specifically. And it was the hardest day of my life when that day came and I didn't get that call. And that's something that nobody prepares you for, right? You're playing ball since you're in third grade, and it's all you're good at. You get a degree in whatever geography you wanted, like nothing.
Sociology.
So
Or
yeah,
or
right.
you
And
don't,
so
yeah, or
yeah,
you
or you
don't
just
get a
don't enjoy
degree.
it. But yeah, and it's like, you have such a hard reference. Like in the football world, you see these guys in the NFL making all these huge contracts, and even practice squad guys are making unreal amount of money, 300-400 grand sometimes. And so your perspective is a bit skewed from the real world, is what I learned the hard way. I came in, I was like, yeah, I got to get a job. I could probably make 80, 90 grand, blah, 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 like boom, boom, boom. I come in, they're like, yeah, we'll give you 40 grand. I'm like, huh? Like, what? Okay, and then I start putting job feelers out, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be making much money, and so you start realizing like you either have to work your way up the ladder in corporate America, or you start looking around at some of the most successful people around you, and 9 times out of 10, they own a business of some sort, right? And so that kind of sparked my interest of like, if I'm not going to be able to leverage my professional, my athletic ability here, I've got to develop a different muscle, right? And that muscle has to be entrepreneurship and business ownership if I'm going to get where I truly want to be in life. So that's the moment that I really started to shift and prioritize, the next steps in my life.
Yeah, I mean we all, I mean, like I said, Jay and I are kind of getting to that point where we're trying to figure out what is next in line for us. But when we talk about franchising, what is franchising? Like you're talking to a bunch of athletes that maybe sometimes we don't, or coaches that we don't learn this type of stuff, right? Like we just hear like F45 or Orange Theory or Barry's Boot Camp and all these different types of things. Or like we don't like, you talk about franchise. I think of McDonald's. I think of Walmart. I think of like that type of
Right.
stuff. But like the gyms are franchise too. So like, what is franchising and what is a franchise and how do you even get involved in that?
Yeah, so the reason that I jumped into franchising is one because I was working at a franchise in college. So, that's where I got thrown into the fire, right? But franchising is really transferable when it comes to working with athletes, to be honest, because essentially what franchising is, it's a business in a box, right? It comes with a playbook, it comes with an operations manual, it comes with the marketing, it comes with the coaching, all the things that athletes are used to having in their everyday life. A franchise comes with that in the business world, right? And so that's why I gravitated towards it, because I'm not a creative person. I'm not someone that can sit here and come up with all this crazy stuff. I don't really, frankly, want to go through all that. I would much rather leverage the hard work and failures that somebody else has already gone through and then capitalize on that in a much quicker fashion than I would if I just recreated the wheel and did it all myself, right? So that's what franchising is. And franchising is not, frankly, I don't really refer people and work with people that want to do food franchises, by the way. I work with about 600 different franchises in over 30 different industries. So that could be health and wellness, fitness, that could be automotive, it could be home service, so like garage door companies, from investment ranges all the way from $100,000 on the low end up to a million plus, right? And so really what I do is think of me as like a headhunter now. My company, I own a company that helps individuals, professionals, athletes leverage their transferable skills from whatever they've been doing and transfer that into business ownership through franchising. And so, I basically build them a profile, right? I work with somebody. I'll say, hey, Coop, what is your background? What have you been doing? What's your family like? What does your everyday to day life want to look like? What are your goals? What are your needs, right? Do you want to start a business while you keep your job? Do you want to start a business and then within 2 years transfer 100% into your business and exit your job, right? All these things, I start building a profile out for my clients. And then from that, I go out to the over 600 different franchises that I have contracts with. And I basically put a few options in front of them and say, hey, this is what I think would really be good for you. Here's a handful of things. And typically I show all different industries, right? So I would show you 5 different businesses in 5 different industries. and say, based off of what I've learned about you, I think that you could really leverage your transferable skills in one of these businesses to meet and or exceed your goals in the amount of time that we've talked about. And then I essentially just help them navigate. I'll introduce them to some of those brands that they like, and I'll help them navigate. I've done my due diligence on these brands. Being on the franchise development side for so long, I will not let my clients work with a franchise that I have not personally investigated and interrogated. I've gone to their directors and their VPs. I've reviewed their disclosure documents and made sure that and validated with their franchisees that they're actually happy and they're making money and things like that. So before you even talk to them, I've done all my due diligence on the back end and I've vetted out all the ones that are crap. So that's what I do in a nutshell, right? It's really just helping people because I'm so passionate about business ownership and entrepreneurship. I think it's the best vehicle to achieve the goals that me personally, that I've wanted to achieve in my life, and it has done that for me so far. And I'm excited about educating specific athletes and coaches around it because I think there's a serious lack in that world. They don't bring people in to talk to you about that. They bring the refs in and they do spring ball coaching and this and that, but your advisor is not going to do that. They're not a business owner. They don't know anything. So, that's where I think there's a huge gap in what we're doing right now.
Even what you were saying too, where it's like, because I feel like with American football, and I feel like we all know playing football, especially D1 level, where it's like, I think all of us went into college with like, there is no plan B, it's plan A, which is getting
Yep.
to the league. And,
Yep.
you have just like so much structure on a daily basis where it's like, you have classes at this time, you need to be at practice at this time, we're watching film at this time. And then you get out of college and it's like, not that American football players aren't creative, but, it's like, you do have a lack of creativity because of the structure that you had in your life. And I feel like that's a great transfer from American football to probably go into like something like franchising where it's like, stuff is laid out for you. And then, you can open, I'm sure there you see people that open their creativity from there and maybe get into their own thing. But could
Right.
you speak a little bit more to that? And like, what route do you see people go down after that franchise route? Or
Yeah, and by the way, like the plan A only, that strategy is necessary, right? Like
yeah,
if you want to be successful at the highest level at what you're doing, you have to laser focus in on it, right? So these athletes that come in and they say like it's NFL or bust, like good. You can't you have to, like you can't be like, yeah, I want to go to the NFL, but I also want to do this and that. Like, no,
Ain't
there's
no
no
word. You
room
got
for you
thousands of
don't
others
have the
trying to
bandwidth
just
for
go to the
that.
league.
Yeah. The fact that you made it to a Division I program to start with is an accomplishment, right? So like I think so many people like they hear all the buzzwords of I want to be in the league, I want to be in the NFL, I want to do this combine. And and everything just gets so watered down because so many people talk about it. But people don't realize how much of an accomplishment that really is. So yeah, to answer your question, I say yes, like you have to be laser focused on that. Once you're done with that, right? That's the first step is like what does being done look like? It's different for everybody,
yeah,
you know. Jay, you're 30, right? Coop, you're
yeah.
30, 32. Y'all still playing ball. I'm 31. I stopped when I was 2015 because I was white and can't jump, but like, you know what I mean? Like, so
And
it's different for
you could have
everybody.
come to Europe and had a great career, bro.
Yeah, for real.
But it's like, but even Europe, I mean, you guys have a better testimony than anybody. Like life in playing ball in Europe versus being in the league, those are two very, very different things. Very,
They're
very
not even
different things.
comparable.
So
Not even
you
comparable,
can't
bro.
compare. So
There's a
you know
football
what
on
I
the field.
mean?
That was the only thing that was.
Right. So, you know, I can tell you that this is a funny. I was actually talking to a CEO. I was sitting at dinner with a CEO for one of these franchises a couple weeks ago in Salt Lake City, and I asked him this. I've asked a lot of people this question, but I asked these people, "Do you know anybody that's ever gotten into franchising that has actually left franchising?" And he sat there really hard. He's been doing this a lot longer than I have. He's like, "No, I don't. I don't know anybody." The franchising world it's very special. It's kind of a blend of two different models, in my opinion, right? I think it's a blend of coaching and and processes and business, but also it's leveraged for entry level, right? It's built and designed for people to come in that have never done business before, right? And so when people get a taste of that, you come in, it's built to scale. So really, to answer your question, Jay, most people when they come into franchising, if they're a good fit for franchising, because that's a whole nother conversation. It's not for everybody, but the ones that are a good fit for the franchising world, they typically, once they get one under their belt, they scale up. They go to multi-unit. They go to diversify with another franchise brand while they keep their existing one, right? Most people don't just sell and exit completely from franchising. They get into the model, they get a taste of it, they get their feet wet off of a small startup franchise, a Pelicans, right? 100 grand to get up, you're shaving snowballs. I was in Pelicans for 6 years. I owned my franchise for 6 years, and I owned and operated it, and then I sold it. I sold it back in January, just a few months ago. But I love franchising. It's great, right? And I'm always looking for the next thing, right? So yeah, if you're looking to, if there's any world in which you could find yourself being a business owner, I would say it's almost doing yourself an injustice if you don't at least educate yourself on the world of franchising, because it costs no money, right? My clients pay me no money. I work for free for my clients because I have contracts with the franchisors. So I work for you and I educate you and I'm on your side. And if you find something that you like and you really want to do it and be a part of it, invest in it, then the franchisor pays me as like a headhunter. They say, hey, thanks for bringing me this person. Here's a referral fee for you, right? So I truly am able to do what's best for my clients. And it's all education. It's all just learning, right? And so that's the best thing about it. It's entry level, it's learning, it's scalable, it's a playbook. It's everything built in a box for you, which is cool.
I know some of our listeners out there, coaches and athletes are kind of like, what are we doing talking about franchise? You started a podcast that's talking about strength and conditioning, but it's so important because you and I had a conversation 2 weeks ago where you brought up what is y'all's end goal? And Jay and I, when we first started this thing, we talked about what our end goal was, and that's to potentially, open up our own sports performance place that, all these coaches can come to. We can have seminars, we can have athletes coming in and changing the game here in Europe. Now we don't always think of the finish line. It's the same thing as when we program for an athlete, right? We think about how many athletes can we get in and what can we program for them to make them a better athlete, but we don't ever think of what is the end goal, like what is their end process of what they're trying to get out of this thing. And it's the same thing we're looking at it now. And so I'm like, man, we got to figure out the pieces to put together to help coaches and athletes in all forms of this strength and conditioning world, because we all come in with the idea of, hey, we want to start our own business. We want to, hey, this is what it's going to be called. And we're just going to roll with it. We're just going to go, not knowing all the pieces that you need to go with it. Right. And not knowing all the other avenues you can also go down with it. Like somebody could open up a gym and potentially that can turn into a franchise, like you said, with being creative. Now, when you see a lot of coaches get into this thing, and because you've obviously seen franchisees, franchisors, and coaches and whatnot, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see them make? And even athletes that are going into franchising.
The biggest mistakes that I see everybody make in franchising, if they make them, is that they try to recreate the wheel, right? Franchising is not for somebody to come in and do their own thing. You gotta, and that sounds very familiar, right? It sounds very familiar as a coach and as an athlete.
I've got a couple of head coaches.
So they come in and they try to do their own thing, man. They think they know better. It's funny because, you get a franchise that's 20 years old, 200, 300 franchisees, however many they got. And then they get John Smith that comes in and they're a new franchisee and they say, hey, this marketing stuff, man, you guys are not doing this and blah, 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 blah. And every franchise, I tell my clients, every franchise has a top 20%, a bottom 20%, right? Every franchise. And there are very, very similar traits across all systems of the top performers and the bottom performers. And that's also very familiar as an athlete, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not much different. You come in, you operate the playbook, you execute the strategies, you leverage the coaching and the materials, you listen, you come in and be coachable, right? Like it's so transferable. And the people that do that are successful. And as long as because there's so much, I could get into another hour conversation on the regulations around franchising, around the Federal Trade Commission and the disclosures that they make these companies make to you. It's very, very transparent. It's been built so that somebody, when they're coming in to potentially invest in a franchise, that franchise has to disclose to you everything about their successes and their failures. So if you come in and are looking at a franchise, they have to tell you performance representations of their franchise, right? They have to tell you what the investment is and specifically what you're going to invest in. They break it down by line item, right? So if it's $150,000 investment, they have to come in and tell you exactly where that money is going to go, and also what the range could be if some things change along the way, right? And so it's not something that you're in the dark on, right? You come in, and as long as you are doing your due diligence, which is why to work with somebody like myself, because I help you through that due diligence with multiple brands. Um, it's transparent, right? So it's, if you invest in something and you're not successful in it, it's because of two things. You either didn't do your due diligence up front on the brand, or you were not a good fit for franchising to begin with, and somebody lied to you or sold you on something, right? Um, and so I think that honestly, like, more people in the business world should. I always advise my clients to think about the exit at the start, right? At the end of the day, if you invest six figures and you put 10 years of your time into this business, what does that look like for you? What is success defined as for you in this venture? Because otherwise, you're spinning the wheels. When you go and you join a football team, what does success look like? I'm winning championships. I'm making the league. I'm getting that check. Like I'm getting free school. I just love the game. I don't care if I go to school or not. Like whatever that is for you, you've got to know that before you start doing it, and before you can really unlock yourself and invest and dive into something like that, you've got to do the due diligence and understand what the exit's going to be, so that you can truly be invested in whatever that thing is, right? So I think it looks different for everybody, but I think there are some core fundamentals that everybody can follow when it comes to not just business, but planning out if they're going to invest themselves and their sweat equity and their time into something that they're thinking about doing, whether that's coaching or a business or football or whatever, right? Being a dad, right? It could be anything.
That's probably
Yeah.
sounds like the most transferable thing to sports, getting into
Very,
Right.
yeah,
franchising, honestly.
Yeah,
very.
that all like now it makes sense why like a former athlete would go into something like that, because at the end of the day, like sometimes it is a little more, it's a lot easier just to follow a playbook. You know what I mean? Instead of like trying to think about how do we create a whole business plan and do this, that, and the other, and just give me a playbook. Like let me just roll with
Yeah.
that. You know, like I'm tired of having like trying to figure out all these business plans and try to figure out how can I become successful and make money and whatnot, when, like you said, why reinvent the wheel when it's already right there for you? But you also still have coaches that, have aspirations like we do, owning our own place. Now, if we look at brick and mortar, because we're in 2024, we look at brick and mortar, would you think that brick and mortar is as lucrative nowadays? Or what way would you persuade a coach when they're getting into, the fitness industry?
So the fitness industry specifically, I've got some special experience here because, like I said, I was director with a fitness brand that is brick and mortar and is a pretty significant investment in the boutique fitness space. So I think that it depends on who I'm working with. There's no good answer for that, I would say. But what I would tell you is, um, there are a lot of different avenues you can go depending on what that end goal is for you, right? If you are a coach and you are wanting to start a coaching business, right? It does not make sense, in my opinion, for you personally to go out and secure a huge investment in a real estate, a storefront, a brick and mortar, right? It's just such large overhead. There's so many things that go into that. I would much rather see that person leverage somebody else's business to start with and get their business off the ground, and you can do it remotely. You can do in home. There's a lot of different ways you can do that coaching without needing a brick and mortar. You can even just use a space without actually having to lease it, right? And put the money up front for it. There are some franchises that leverage. I actually have one of my clients right now. They're doing a 3-pack, so they're doing 3 units with a mobile fitness concept where they have a sprinter van, and it's outfitted with all the TRX and all this stuff. And they drive these coaches, they drive to the corporate headquarters of these buildings, and they host these workouts for people mobily, right? In parking lots and at parks and outside, right? And so there's so many different ways that you can leverage your skills, whether that's coaching, even if it's not through business ownership. I would explore you to try different ways of coaching before you say, hey, I'm going to start a business with this one, right? Go work at a boutique fitness place. Go work at a brick and mortar. Go do personal training in people's homes one-on-one. Do some mobile group fitness, because the stuff's out there. People have already started these things and invested into them. Figure out what you like. Figure out which way you want to go. Who you want to work with. Are you specifically for athletes? Do you want to work with elderly people in their 40s, 50s, 60s that need some sort of slower movements that can pay a lot more because they've made a lot of money? Right? Like, who do you want to work with? You want to work with kids? There's so many questions that I would ask somebody that says, I want to start a coaching business. First, you have to truly look at the end strategy, the end goal, define your audience, what are your targets, and then start to do what makes sense from there, whatever that looks like for you.
I feel like this is huge information too, because like honestly, this is the coaches camp compass, and business is business. And I feel like a lot of coaches nowadays that feel like they provide so much value and don't feel like getting into the college strength and conditioning world just because the pay isn't great. It's just like a lot of these coaches that provide a shit ton of value is like, why not get into providing value within my own facility, my own structure? And I feel like, yeah, what you're saying is huge, where it's just like, yeah, you don't have to provide a brick and mortar at first. You can start off online and, leverage. I love how you're talking about leverage so much, but leveraging social media, that's free leverage. Could you speak to more like forms of leverage? I'm like, you over here handing out free gold.
I'm sorry.
Hey, man, Zay over there he over there taking notes.
Over
Hey,
here
man.
taking notes. Oh,
You broke up just a little bit. Repeat that last question for me. Could you speak to what?
no, you were talking about leverage a lot, and I know. I mean,
Yeah.
even me with my business, the one leverage that I use so much a lot that's free is social media. And I've heard
Mhm.
you were saying you've been speaking to leverage a lot. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more to,
Yeah.
forms of leverage and taking advantage of leverage.
Yeah. So as an athlete, and I keep speaking to this because I know we can all relate to it, but as an athlete, I don't think most athletes realize just how specialized they really are in what they do. And I want to pause after that, because as a man, as an athlete, as a business owner, as a dad, all these things are hard. They're very hard. And the ones that have gotten to a certain point of success in whatever they're doing, they have already beaten the odds by being successful at that level. Okay. So these people that are Division I athletes, these kids that are playing in D1 schools that are wanting to coach, they're doing all these things. They are very good at something, and there are way more people that have no clue what they're doing than that one person. So what I mean by that is, when somebody comes out and they're an ex Division I football player, when they go to that boutique fitness space and they apply for that head coaching job, right? The person that comes in that was not a Division I athlete is not as attractive, right? For a lot of reasons. And these athletes, they don't get this told to them enough. What you're building, the discipline you're going through, the social media that you're leveraging, because if you're a high level athlete, most likely people are looking at you and paying attention to you, especially nowadays with NIL, right? You are building out your brand constantly, and your transferable skills and your leverage points just by being very, very good at what you do, right? And when you come out, go to the places where you want to be, because I guarantee you, you have a hand up on 99% of other people, unless they additionally are a college athlete and they've achieved the same things as you, which is very unlikely. You are going to beat them out, right? So if you want to be a coach and you want to start a coaching business, first I would say figure out where you want to be, who you want to work with, what you want to do, all these things. Go out to these places, get into the positions, and then say, hey, I think I could do this on my own. And then I would say you need to leverage somebody that's done it before you. Leverage somebody like the Coaches Compass, who's coming in and they're working with coaches specifically to coach them on how to program. And if you want to start a business, go talk to somebody who's done it, right, in the same world, in the same field as you, right? And so I think that people aren't as aware as they should be of what they're really, really good at and what their transferable skills are and what kind of leverage they do have. And so I think that, yeah, some people have social media, but most of the time, if you're an athlete, the leverage is in your experience, and you just have to believe in yourself enough to go out and execute on it, to be honest with you.
No, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, that's crazy to hear because most of the time you're told to be humble, not really speak out of like everything that you've done and those types of things because that's what we've been ingrained to like do. And we don't ever think it's like anything super special, but like when you do think about it, like you are part of like a small for like you're part of a 1% to go to Division One. Like if you really think about
Less,
it,
less,
you know
less
what I
than
mean?
one.
And then once you go like from back to like the professional level, like it's even less again, right? So there's so many levels that we reach to, but then we always play ourselves little, just to seem like we're humble and that can get along with every other
Bro,
person. We're not.
it's ingrained. As an athlete, it's beat into you, man. When you're in the film room, the coach sits there and does nothing but tell you how much you suck, right? Like someone's got to humble you. So like, yeah, when you hear that for so long, it's like, yeah, they must be right,
Shit, I ain't
Yeah,
nobody special. We always say that. Yeah, hey man, I ain't nothing, bro. I'm just a normal guy out here, bro.
yeah, yeah. All right. No, like, but and then you look at you guys and where you're at specifically to the people that are listening from Europe. Think of the people you work with, and then go drop them in a Division I program in the States, right? Like, yeah, right. And so that's the position you guys are in, which is really cool because you have that experience and that leverage, right? And so that's where I think that is even with the two of you, like you guys are doing something really special, bringing a huge value to people that are in Europe because one, they don't have connections typically to the US like they will have with you guys. They don't have the contacts. They don't have the experience in front of them, right? They may want to go play at a Division I school. They have no clue what that looks like, right? And when they look at you, they see Coop. I don't know how, Jay, I've never met you in person, but when Coop walks in and he's 6'2" and tatted and, he's jacked and he makes me look like a clown, like that's intimidating. They're like, okay, this is what a college safety looks like in the States. Like, okay,
Yeah.
but I so you guys, I love what you guys are doing, and I really hope that people start listening and coming to you guys over there because they have gold right in front of them. To be honest with you.
Yeah, no, because you talk about like not having, so much access to things in the States is like what we do. We do talk a little bit about like the equipment and stuff, but can you talk to what it would be like, just small bit of what it would be like for a European trying to start their business and take it to America, right? So what if they wanted
Mm.
to come to America and work with it? Like, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I'm still a little fucking confused.
Quite
So
frankly.
yeah. So specifically what you're talking about, what I would recommend is, I mean, again, I'm the franchise guy, right? So I mean, my company specifically, we've created a program that actually allows people to make US investments and like migrate to the States through that program and through business ownership even. And so it's called the E2 visa program. We have contracts with over 80 different countries. So depending on where you're where you have residency in Europe, you can potentially leverage this visa program. And essentially, whether it's a franchise or not, you would grab a franchise attorney, which I have connections for that. But they would help you build a case. You would invest into this business. You would come over to the States and start the business and get it going. And then from there, you go before the immigration officer and you plead your case and say, hey, I've made this huge investment. I'm bringing jobs to the United States economy. This is going to be a valuable thing for the United States. Will you look at this visa application for me and grant me this visa to come over and run my business in the States and benefit the United States economy? And so it's a huge program. There are a ton of people that come to the United States. And the E2 visa, it's 2-year renewals, right? So once you get approved for the visa, you get it for 2 years. You have to renew it every 2 years, but there's no limit on how long you can renew it for, right? So people can come to the States, they can start a business, and they can live in the States. And as long as you're running that business or a business, it doesn't always have to be the same business, by the way. You can start one and then sell it and start another. And as long as when you go to reapply for that E2 visa, you have a good case for why you should be able to stay in the United States through your business ownership and the jobs you're creating and all these things. There's people that have been in the States for 50, 60 years on E2 visas because they get in, they start businesses, and they just keep scaling and growing from there. And that could be anything, whether it's a franchise or not. I always tell people that franchising is the best bet because these officers, they are familiar with franchises, and there are certain franchises that are already approved through these models that have E2 candidates operating in the States that they can leverage, right, their experience off of. But yeah, it's a very cool program. And I would say the minimum that you would need to be able to invest into a business like that is around $100,000. If you invest less than that, it's not as strong of a case when they go to look at the significance of the impact on the economy when you come over. So, but yeah, it's a great program, and it's an opportunity, a different way for people that want to be in the States to come to the States that most people don't know about.
Does it have to be an American company? An American franchise?
No, actually, no. In most franchises, actually, a lot of the franchises in my inventory are global franchises.
Oh.
Yep.
Now I
So
understand
cool.
why people want to go live the American dream. You know what I mean? There's a lot more hoops, a lot less hoops to jump through to get that visa compared to what we had to do over here in Europe just to stay. That's good to know, especially for a lot of these coaches over here that, potentially maybe want to, try different opportunities in the States. So my next question for you would be, in 5 to 10 years from now, where's Caleb at?
Caleb is physically, I'm not sure. No, man, I think that in 5 to 10 years, I'll still be doing what I'm doing now, which is helping people find business ownership, right? So, I just launched. I call myself a franchise coach just because I'm familiar with coaching, obviously, as an athlete, but it's what I'm passionate about, man. From a kid standpoint, I don't know if we're gonna have more. Maybe not. We got 2 right now, and they're young, so that's still up in the air. But yeah, man, I'll be helping people get into business ownership. I think that's and find the right investments, man. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm setting up some speaking engagements where I can actually get in front of these college athletes and things like that, and speak to different people in the communities and stuff. So I think that there's not enough valid voices out there that are helping people understand that life after an athlete or after coaching is not black and white, right? Like you can do a lot of different things, but people just aren't there to advise them and help them that have been through that same experience. Because I can tell you, like when I was after I hung up my cleats and I was in the shaved ice stand, I was making snowballs, and I just graduated and I just hung up my cleats, and that customer came up that knew who I was and saw my face on the billboards and on the sides of buses and stuff. And they said, "Caleb, how's football going?" And when I had to tell them, "Hey, actually, I hung up the cleats. I'm done." And now I'm just sitting in the shaved ice stand as a snowball maker. Like that hit me really, really hard, right? When the places that you used to walk into and people would buy stuff for you, now they don't even know who you are. It hits you really hard, smack in the face. And there's not enough of us out there getting in front of these kids to tell them reality is going to come at some point, whether it's this year or in 10 years. Make sure you're leveraging the relationships that are in front of you now to set yourself up for success in the future. And that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I'll still be doing 10 years from now. So
I wanted to flip your own question on you. What does success look like for you? Whether that's like mentally or metric, like regards to financial, or is like,
success for me is where I can wake up every day and be very, very excited about the entire day ahead of me. Right. That's what
yeah,
success is to me. When I can wake up and I can do what I want to do on my own terms and be able to support myself and my family the best way that I know how, that is success for me. When I can wake up and work at certain times of the day, that's great. When I don't have to call that person to say, "Hey, I want to go to the beach with my family. Will you let me go?" That's not success to me. So it's gonna be different for everybody, but honestly, like uh, I just I love being able to wake up and do what I want to do on my own terms with my family and support them the best way I know how. And so I think that as long as you're doing that, as long as I'm doing that, I will always consider myself successful in that
I
way.
love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal your little thunder there and tell you that the whole leverage thing is because Coach Lambo and Coach Adams used to tell us this all the time, right? It ain't the grades you make, it's the hand you shake, right? So there's the leverage
That's
there for
right.
you athletes out there, right? That's your networking tool from the jump. I can tell you
Yep.
guys, most of the time in class, I wasn't there to pay attention to class. I was there to pay attention to the people that were in class. So the ones that were
Yeah.
getting the good grades, I was making friends with them. I knew it very
That's so
early on.
true.
School and stuff was not for me. So leveraging being an athlete kind of always helped and got me to the position I'm in. Now, not that I wouldn't say I'm at the success rate that I want to be at yet, but we'll get there eventually. My last thing before we get into our 90-second questions, your biggest piece of advice for any coach, athlete getting into the other side of life and kind of going into business.
Yeah, what I talk to my clients often about when we're going through the education process of learning about different business models is to always look back and I always like to investigate the bison. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the bison story. You guys know what a buffalo is, right? You
Yeah.
know they're the
Hmm.
only animal that when a storm is coming, they turn and they head straight into the storm because that's the quickest way through it, right? And that to me was a life changing. I'll never forget when I read that in this book I was reading. And so I tell all the people I'm working with, like when things get tough, when they start to get uncomfortable, change is inevitable. What most people stop moving forward at is when they get uncomfortable with the change that's about to happen, right? So that's where I lose most people along the way in the process when I'm working with them and they're investigating business and things like that. They stop ghosting me at the point where they get uncomfortable and they're like, oh, I'm about to go through all this change and this is about to happen and that's not going to be the same. Blah, blah, blah. And so I challenge them. I always say, listen, when that starts happening, that's when you know you're in the right room. Right? So that's where I tell people when change comes, turn and face it. And that's the fastest way through it. And I promise you, you always will be proud of yourself on the other side of that when you get on the other side of that storm or that change that's coming. That's what I would tell people.
Run into the storm, face it head
That's it.
on, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And now you about to get a little uncomfortable because we're about to go into our 90-second round. One word
Let's go.
answers, right? So you're going to give us
One
one
word
word
answer.
answers
That's the rule.
for all
One word.
10
Okay.
questions. All right.
All right.
So you ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. 9 seconds on the clock. Favorite workout snack?
Snickers.
Best workout facility in America?
Ooh, the coach's compass, wherever that's gonna land.
Favorite NFL team?
Ooh, Chiefs.
Pizza or burger?
Burger.
Favorite franchise?
The one that's right for you.
Best country you've been to outside of America?
Italy.
Best tool for starting a franchise?
Coach.
Which do you prefer, sales business or franchise?
It's all the same.
Would you rather work with a person who knows about franchising or someone who completely new to it all?
A newbie.
Would you rather own part of a franchise or be the franchisor?
Franchisee, own part of the franchise.
What is the biggest flaw of franchising?
Uh, Lack of support in certain models.
Last one, here we go. Best roommate, Brandon Dozier, BJ Reinhardt, Nick Cook, or Desmond Cooper?
Come on, you know the answer to that, Coop Daddy.
Yeah, sir. And that is episode number 11. We appreciate you coming on and dropping the other side of knowledge for us, right? You know, like we talk about programming, we talk about speed, we talk about all the things about all the other stuff about being a coach, but we never really get the chance to go into the business side of how it is to open up your own franchise, how it is to, start and actually look at the finish line before you even start. So I think it was super important to have you on, bro, and I always love chopping it up with you because you're one of the ones that always keeps it real. Like I said, you brought me into ISI. You still dick into that one, but always love playing it.
Hey, you might not have done this podcast though if it wasn't for that.
Might
though,
not be
you
back
know?
in Europe right now if it wasn't for you, bro. Not gonna lie, like I really do. I appreciate you bringing me in, though, bro. Like, I know I call you a dickhead for it, it's just because of the times that we had in there.
Yeah.
But
so.
most importantly, like you led me to a point to where I'm at now. I'm gonna be closer to being back to Europe, being closer to my daughter. Yeah, so bro, nothing but love for you. I love you, dog. I appreciate you coming on.
Man.
And we definitely gotta get you over to Europe to kind of come into one of our, our camps and do a little consulting and stuff. You know what I
Yo,
mean?
I'm about it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Get you and the family
Listen.
over here to see what it's all about,
Let's do
man.
it. Yeah,
You next
I'm
year?
all-
There's nice
Yeah,
thing.
you
I'm
too,
definitely
man.
down to have like further conversation. That was some good
Yeah,
shit.
man.
Really good
Hey,
shit.
man, let's talk. I'm here. Let's inspire. Let's motivate. Let's educate. That's what we do, man. Let's talk.